Many people just do not appreciate how good Kristaps Porzingis really is. In an era filled with basketball unicorns, he is the forefather of the name, and he has never been better than he is right now. KP's career has not been without its up and downs. Injuries have often been a concern, and he had a frustrating tenure in Dallas. He just didn't gel with Luka, and he was often too passive to be seen as a reliable number two. And given the promise he showed early in New York, the narrative developed that he was a disappointment. And, as is often the case with NBA discourse, that narrative has survived even as the evidence has changed. Porzingis is a very different player than he was in Dallas. Unsurprisingly, his career season in Washington, where he demonstrated dramatic improvement as a post-up player and defender and posted career best efficiency, mostly went under the radar. But he got even better in all those categories in Boston this year and clearly should have been an all-star in my opinion, but the narrative persisted. Coming into this series, many seemed to be relatively unmoved by his return, claiming he wasn't built for the moment, attributing his lack of career playoff success, which is mostly due to the bad rosters he's played with, to some fatal character flaw of his. But KP is a game changer, and he let that be known in Game 1 of the NBA Finals, dropping 18 points in the first half in his return to action after missing over a month with a calf injury, standing out as Boston's best player in a dominant win. And while Porzingis playing that well, especially in his first game back, was exceptional, he was always going to pose several key problems for Dallas on both sides of the ball as one of the sport's most unique weapons, and he's probably the most important player in this series. The Mavericks came into this game switching everything, something their versatile defensive personnel often allows them to do, but Porzingis is a different beast. KP was the most efficient volume post-up player in basketball this year, averaging 1.28 points per post-up. His shot making is absurd. He made 56% of his turnaround jumpers this year, and with his overwhelming size, physicality, and willingness to face up where defenders are more likely to make contact with him, he drew a foul on an absurd 29% of his post-ups this year, as he does against Luka here. At 7'3", he doesn't even see a player as small as Jaden Hardy and clears him out to create a wide open jumper. Here, he draws a cross match with Josh Green, who tries to play him physically and force his catch point further out, but KP still manages to establish pretty good position and is comfortable turning to face up here, unbothered by Green's presence in his airspace. Derrick Jones Jr. is again up in his space here, but KP uses that one dribble to get better position, rips through, and hits this leaning jumper right over him. Now guarded by Green again, this pump fake creates him a sliver of space, one dribble, and he's into an open mid-range look. So that's 5 post-ups, leading to 10 points for the big fella in short order. Porzingis is simply a different player than he was out of the post in Dallas, and this game epitomized that. Instead of taking tough fadeaways, he's facing up and taking closer, balanced jumpers. Instead of being bothered by pesky physical defense, he embraces the physicality. And he was both patient and decisive out of the post in this game, leaving these smaller players helpless. The reality is that Boston has overwhelming offensive talent, so there is no easy answer to dealing with these Porzingis screens. Here he sets a great screen and there's some confusion over if Dallas is switching or hedging, so it creates a wide open 3 for him. He can also punish you for playing drop with his pick and pop shooting. If you go under a screen, you're conceding an open pull-up 3 to the ball handler, who for Boston is always a good shooter. I understand the predicaments here. But for the most part, I'd like to see Dallas fighting to stay in their matchups more, especially in a spot like this where KP's not even making contact on the screen. You don't have to switch, because outside of an open layup, there's really not a worse look you can concede than a post mismatch for Porzingis. He is that special in that regard. Dallas was able to improve guarding KP as the game progressed. Lively worked extremely hard to deny him the ball in the second half, and I liked when they played this jumbo lineup with PJ Washington, Maxi Kleber, and Lively all on the floor. When you have 3 big front court players out there who can also all guard in space, you can switch much more effectively, and that means the mismatch Porzingis has to try to attack here is Luka, who's a pretty strong post defender and is able to stonewall him and force a steal. So I'd like to see more of those looks going forward, but with his overwhelming size and shot making, Porzingis still has the advantage against anybody other than the center, so it's not some automatic fix. Along with his dominant post play, Porzingis is one of the absolute best three-point shooting bigs in the league, and his raw 37.5 three-point percentage, while quite good, still undersells his value because of the range he can pull from and the fact that you can't affect his shot at his height. If you're not dialed in semi-transition, he'll hit this from deep. Luka is in a normal helping position here and even gets out to contest, but Porzingis reigns this 30-footer over him. That is a special weapon to have on the floor, especially against this Dallas defense, which has prided itself on excellent rim protection and has consistently packed paints, challenging teams to beat them with sound playmaking and three-point shooting while taking away those layups and dunks. So once again, Porzingis is the perfect counter to what Dallas wants to accomplish. And overall, nobody shoots better from deep than Boston. Every player to see meaningful minutes in game one is a very good three-point shooter, and their drive and kick offense was lethal. So offensively, KP was a game breaker, dropping 20 points on 72% true shooting in just 21 minutes, but he also had a huge impact defensively. Porzingis is one of the best pure rim protectors in basketball. This season, he held opposing players 14% below their typical field goal percentage inside of 6 feet, which was the best number in the league. And in 4 playoff games, that number has risen to a comical 23% differential. Players are shooting just 38% when challenging KP at the rim in these playoffs. And he made several outstanding plays in game one. Blocking this Kyrie pull-up out of drop coverage, which is a testament to his sheer size, meeting Josh Green at the rim here. But on top of his solo heroics, Porzingis was put in a position to thrive defensively. I saw a lot of concern coming into this series about what Luka would do to Porzingis because of how he's torched conventional rim protecting bigs. And there were moments in game one where KP struggled in that matchup. Switching is not a good idea, nor is blitzing. You don't want him guarding in space. But Boston is able to deploy a unique scheme defensively that makes life easier on Porzingis and mostly keeps him out of these compromising situations. And for that, we have to give some love to Jayson Tatum, who makes it all possible. Because Tatum is such a big forward and such an excellent rebounder, they're able to put him on the Dallas centers, knowing he can legitimately hold his own and put Porzingis on a wing, be it Derrick Jones Jr. or PJ Washington. This means that when Luka or Kyrie calls one of the centers up to screen, Boston can switch Tatum, an excellent perimeter defender, onto the star. There's no need to blitz, which can concede 4-on-3s, open dunks and corner threes, and you don't have to worry about the big getting behind you for a lob off the roll. You just switch and negate the advantage those screens normally create. Off these switches, Dallas's bigs do have an edge on the offensive glass, but that advantage is strongly preferable for Boston to them being spoon-fed dunks off the roll, which Gafford and Lively got 0 of in game one as they combined for just 10 points. Those two have been very productive throughout the playoffs, and there's no more efficient offense than a lob or dump off to one of them, and Boston took that away. So because you can put Tatum on the big, Porzingis can play his preferred drop coverage without worrying about conceding lobs to those vertical spacing bigs because he's matched up with a wing. If Gobert stepped up to challenge a Luka floater, then that ball was going over the top for a dunk. But Porzingis can basically just ignore the screener and focus on Luka. When the screener popped, he would do just that. Sit and drop, take away Luka's floaters and layups, and concede open above the break threes to these poor to mediocre shooters. For Dallas to win, those guys have to make those looks, but they're the shots that Boston wants you taking. When Jones, who Porzingis was primarily guarding, rolled, well, even as bouncy as he is, you can't feed him lobs over Porzingis, who did a phenomenal job recovering to meet him off of these dump-off passes, and the 7-3 guy is going to win the battle against the 6-5 guy at the rim most of the time. Guarding Jones also allows Porzingis to do some roaming. He can help off the suspect shooter here, and once Luka hits that paint, now it's Brown who recovers to Jones so that Porzingis, your best rim protector, is there to play both Luka and Lively successfully. It is worth noting though that Boston's refusal to overhelp is a big reason that they allowed so few dunks and corner threes and why Luka and Kyrie had such limited impacts as playmakers in game one. And on the few possessions when Porzingis was on the big guarding pick and roll, he still played very effective drop coverage and used that overwhelming length to affect the guards. This Boston team is exceptionally talented on both sides of the ball, but when Porzingis is on the floor, he stands out as perhaps the most unique among them. Al Horford was quite good guarding in space in Game 1, but he can't offer anything close to the rim protection Porzingis does. Horford can shoot, but not from deep range like KP, and he has nothing close to that post-up game. In fact, there's no player in the league who can match Porzingis' combination of elite spacing, mismatch attacking, and interior defense. He has a dream skill set for a modern big. Boston didn't get much credit for breezing through an injured East, but often lost in that discourse was the fact that they had a placeholder in their starting five. Now, the unicorn has returned, and with the chip on the line, he's showing the world just how special he really is.